She looked like the kind of girl no one expected anything from. Quiet, plain, always holding a book, never raising her voice. But on that day, in that hospital hallway, everything changed. Not because she wanted to prove something, but because no one else saw what she did. The hallway echoed with hurried footsteps and low murmurs. Nurses rushed past, doctors whispered near the emergency wing, and security tightened the doors like something serious was unfolding. Layla Brooks stood by the janitor's closet, mop in hand, watching silently. She wasn't just any cleaner. She was 17, the daughter of a hard-working mother who scrubbed the same hospital floors for 20 years. Layla had grown up here, not as a patient or a visitor, but as part of the ignored background no one noticed. And yet, she'd seen more inside these walls than most interns. Today, something felt different. Doctors were moving in and out of a private room, guarded by 2 officers. Inside, Layla overheard, was a high-profile patient, a billionaire named Colin Drexler. His condition had suddenly worsened. No diagnosis had explained it, and none of the treatments were working. Layla had noticed things others hadn't. She saw how the flowers sent to the patient's room were different from the usual. She noticed the shifts in his skin tone, the pattern of his spasms, the discoloration around his lips. Her mother, Miriam, told her to stay quiet. "Don't look curious," she'd said. "Don't speak unless someone asks. We're here to clean, not interfere." But Layla couldn't turn off her instincts. She'd always loved science. Biology came naturally to her. And thanks to her great-grandmother, she also knew about traditional remedies, roots and plants that modern hospitals often ignored. One day earlier, she'd seen a nurse throw out a green-stemmed plant left near Mr. Drexler's bedside. "Just some old gift," the nurse muttered. But Layla knew what it was. It looked like Angel's trumpet, a toxic flower that could mimic seizures and organ failure in small doses. And the petals had been tucked inside a get-well card, something no one else had noticed. She'd said nothing that day. She wanted to believe the doctors would figure it out. Now, watching the same man convulse behind sealed glass, Layla felt the weight of her silence. No one was fixing him. They were guessing, and they were running out of time. Suddenly, a commotion erupted. A nurse screamed. Machines beeped. Someone yelled, "We're losing him!" Layla dropped her mop and ran. She didn't ask permission. She didn't wait for a signal. Pushing through the door before the guards could stop her, she reached Mr. Drexler's bedside. His lips were pale. His body trembled. She could see faint green residue on the corner of his mouth. Her voice came, out calm but firm. "He's been poisoned. It's a plant-based toxin, Brugmansia. You need atropine, now." Doctors stared. One of them, older and clearly the lead, barked, "Who is this girl?" Security rushed in behind her. "We'll get her out." "No," Layla shouted, louder than she'd ever spoken. "Check his breath. Swab his lips. You'll find the residue. I saw the flower 2 days ago. You threw it out." Silence fell for just a second. Then one nurse moved. Then another. The lead doctor, skeptical but desperate, gave the nod. While the team worked, security officers dragged Layla back, not gently. Reporters outside the wing saw the struggle and snapped photos. Her face appeared in 6 frames within minutes, confused, determined, and scared. Within 15 minutes, the test confirmed it. Traces of Brugmansia. Just like she said. They administered atropine. Mr. Drexler stabilized, and Layla Brooks, high school student, janitor's daughter, had just saved a billionaire's life in front of the entire hospital. But no one clapped. No one said thank you. Instead, whispers spread. How did she know? What was she doing in there? Who was she to interrupt? Hospital staff began distancing themselves. Layla was escorted out. Her ID badge was taken. She sat alone in the back room, waiting for someone to talk to her. Explain what came next. The same nurse who'd once ignored her now stood in the doorway, arms crossed. They think you did it, she said coldly. You poisoned him. Layla's heart stopped. What? You were the only outsider near the patient. You walked in without permission. Now he's recovering, but no one understands how you knew. It doesn't look good, girl. Outside the room, Layla heard voices, stern, low, and suspicious. A clipboard shuffled. Someone said her name wrong. Layla? Leela? It's Layla, she whispered, but no one cared. Asterisk, they said her name wrong, as if that tiny misstep erased everything she had done. But what hurt more wasn't the way they mispronounced it. It was the silence that followed. No apology, no explanation. Just cold stares and locked doors. Layla sat in the small conference room, hands in her lap. A security guard who had escorted her kept his distance, like she might suddenly attack someone. The door opened. A hospital administrator walked in, followed by a woman in a gray blazer who introduced herself as legal counsel. Neither smiled. Neither sat. We need to ask you some questions, the woman said. Answer honestly. Layla nodded. How long have you worked here? I help my mom. She cleans in the evenings. I just started tagging along a few months ago. Do you have any medical training? No, I read. I study. I want to be a doctor one day. Then why did you enter a restricted patient room without permission? Because no one was helping him. I saw signs. I knew what was happening. He was dying. And you thought you knew better than trained staff? I didn't think. I knew something was wrong. I couldn't ignore it. The woman exchanged glances with the administrator. Where did you learn about Brugmansia? My great-grandmother. She used to treat people in her town. And from reading, I've studied plants since I was 12. The legal counsel scribbled something down. Until we sort this out, she said, you'll need to stay off the premises. You are not suspended, but do not return until we notify you. Layla blinked, but I saved him. I helped. We appreciate your concern, the administrator interrupted. But this is a sensitive situation. Just like that, it was over. She stepped out into the afternoon light, her mother waiting anxiously at the curb. Miriam looked at her daughter, trying to read her face. What happened? They told me to go home. Did they thank you? No, her mother clenched the steering wheel tighter. At home, Layla sat on her bed, scrolling through her phone. Her name hadn't gone viral. No stories. No headlines. But one photo floated through Twitter, grainy, taken by someone in the hallway. It showed her face, mid-shout, eyes wide, hand outstretched. The caption read, Who is this girl? She saved him. It had 100 likes. Nothing huge, but enough to plant a seed. The next morning, Layla woke up to her phone buzzing. A local blogger had written about the incident. The post was titled, High School Janitor's Daughter Outsmarts Doctors at Major Hospital. The comments were mixed. Some praised her. Others doubted it. No way a kid knew what doctors didn't. She probably caused it herself. Classic setup. Layla shut the screen. Later that day, 2 plainclothes officers knocked on her door. Mother answered, confused. We'd like to speak with your daughter. They sat at the kitchen table, notebooks out. This is not an arrest, one officer said. But we're following up on the poisoning. Hospital flagged your name as a person of interest. Layla felt a cold wash creep down her spine. But he's okay now. I helped him. Why would I? We're not accusing you. We're just doing our job. Mind answering a few things? She nodded shakily. How did you recognize the toxin? I just saw it once in a book. I remembered it. Any enemies? Anyone jealous of your knowledge? I don't think so. Did you have access to the patient before the incident? I cleaned the hallway. That's it. The officers looked at each other. One of them closed his notebook. All right. That'll do for now. They left without saying much else. Her mother sank into the nearest chair. I knew it, she whispered. I knew they'd turn it back on us. Layla didn't argue. Later that week, the hospital released an official statement. It thanked its amazing medical staff for stabilizing Mr. Drexler. There was no mention of Layla. But people online weren't done talking. More photos surfaced. One showed the plant in the trash. Another showed Layla being pulled away by security. People started asking, why didn't the hospital listen to her sooner? Why is the girl who helped being treated like a threat? The hashtag that girl in the hallway began trending in small circles. Still, Layla stayed quiet. She didn't want attention. She just wanted the truth to matter. At school, students whispered in the hallways. Teachers asked her to speak to the class about her experience. But she declined. She kept her head down. One day, while eating lunch alone, a teacher quietly slipped a note onto her tray. It read, "Don't stop being brave. The world needs you." She folded it carefully and kept it in her pocket. But not everyone was kind. Parents called the principal and demanded Layla be monitored due to her reckless behavior in a medical setting. Some students spread rumors. She did it for attention. She just got lucky. She's a weirdo anyway. But Layla had already decided this wouldn't end her gut. She would find a way to speak again, in her own time, her own way. When the truth gets too quiet, the world fills the silence with noise. Lies, guesses, twisting questions, all louder than what really happened. And when the girl at the center of it all stays quiet, people start choosing their own versions of her. Layla didn't fight back. She didn't post online. Didn't defend herself. She simply watched the storm build, not like a victim, but like someone waiting for something bigger. 3 days after the statement was released, a reporter showed up at their doorstep. Her name was Olivia Hart. Young, sharp, and unapologetic. "I'm with Channel 6, she said. "Can I speak with Layla?" Miriam hesitated. "She's just a girl." "She's been through enough." Layla stepped forward. "I'll talk." They sat in the living room. Olivia took notes, but mostly listened. "I read the hospital statement," she said. "They thanked their team. But from what I've gathered, you weren't part of that." "No," Layla replied. "They didn't mention me." "But you were the first to recognize the toxin?" "Yes. And where did you learn that?" "I read. I remember things. My great-grandmother taught me too." Olivia leaned forward. "Did anyone from the hospital thank you?" "Officially?" Layla shook her head. "Did they accuse you?" "Not directly, but they made me leave. They called the police." The reporter's brows furrowed. She closed her notebook. "That's all I needed." The next morning, a new article appeared online. "The hospital's forgotten hero. Why did they silence Layla Brooks?" This time, it caught fire. Within hours, national pages picked it up. People started digging deeper. The photo of Layla pointing toward the patient's bed became a symbol. A symbol of being right, but punished anyway. More hashtags followed. Hashtag believe Layla. Hashtag Brooks was right. Silent hero. Some demanded the hospital issue a correction. Others called for Layla to be reinstated. A few even wrote to Mr. Drexler himself, though no one knew if he saw any of it. At school, things shifted. Students who once ignored her now whispered differently. "Did you see the news? She's famous now. I think she's going to be on TV." Layla ignored it. She still sat in the back row, still brought her lunch from home, still walked quietly down the hallways like before. But inside, something had changed. One afternoon, as she left school, a woman stood near the gate. She wore all black and held a leather notebook. Layla Brooks? Yes, I work for Mr. Drexler's private legal team. He's requested to meet you. Layla froze. What for? He wants to thank you. Can speak to you directly. He's at a secure location. If your mother agrees, we can arrange transport. That evening, Layla and Miriam rode in a black sedan. They didn't speak much, both unsure of what to expect. They arrived at a quiet estate outside the city. The staff guided them through polished halls to a sunlit room, where a man sat by the window. Colin Drexler. He looked thinner, paler, but alive. Because of her. His eyes met hers with something close to awe. You're the one, he said softly. The girl who saved me. Layla nodded. I just did what I thought was right. You did more than that, he replied. You noticed what trained doctors missed. You acted when others froze. He gestured for her to sit. I owe you my life, and I want to make sure your life isn't overlooked anymore. Layla blinked. I don't need anything. I didn't do it for. I know. That's why it matters. He handed her an envelope. Inside is a full scholarship. Wherever you choose to study, any medical program. And there's something else. He turned to his assistant, who returned with a sealed letter. This is my official statement. It includes your name. I will release it tomorrow. Layla's. Hands trembled as she took the envelope. Why are you doing this? He smiled faintly, because someone brave enough to speak in a room that doesn't listen deserves to be heard. Back at home, Layla sat on her bed, staring at the letter. Her mother stood by the doorway. I told you to stay quiet, Miriam said gently. But you stayed true instead. And maybe that's braver. The next day, the letter went. Public. Colin Drexler's official statement named Layla Brooks as the first to identify his poisoning. He praised her clarity, courage, and quick thinking. He called her a hero, not once, but 5 times. The post went viral. Comments exploded. She deserves a medal. This is why we need to listen more, even to those we overlook. Technics. Should make a film about her. Layla smiled for the first time in days. But deep down, she knew this wasn't the end. Now that people were watching, the real story was just beginning. **** Fame doesn't come gently. It arrives with flashing lights, questions without answers, and people pulling you in every direction. Layla never asked for attention. But now the world wanted her story, and not everyone wanted the truth. The morning after Colin Drexler's statement, everything changed. Layla's phone rang nonstop. News channels wanted interviews. Blogs flooded her inbox. A documentary producer even offered to fly her to New York. But Layla didn't answer any of them. She still took the bus to school, still wore her old shoes, still sat quietly at the back of the class. But now, whispers followed her wherever she went. That's her. She saved him. She might get rich. Some students were excited for her. Others weren't. Jealousy crept in fast. One girl in her chemistry class scoffed. Loud enough for everyone to hear. She got lucky. Anyone could have guessed plant poisoning. Layla didn't respond, but her teacher did. Anyone could have guessed, but only one girl stepped forward. That's the difference. The class fell silent. Later that day, Layla found a sticky note on her locker. It read, "You think you're smart, but you're just a janitor's kid." She peeled it off and threw it away. At home, her mother was busy answering calls. Some were kind. Others were strange. One caller asked if Layla practiced witchcraft. Another demanded she admit it was staged for attention. One man offered to buy her healing knowledge for $10,000, cash. Miriam unplugged the phone. You don't owe anyone anything, she told Layla, but the pressure kept growing. A week after the statement, Layla got a letter from the hospital board. They wanted her to attend a review hearing, to clarify her involvement in the incident. It sounded formal, but Layla knew it wasn't just about facts. It was about control. "They're scared," Miriam said. "You made them look weak," Layla nodded. "I'll go. I'll tell the truth." The hearing was held in a cold, glass-walled room. Around the table sat men and women in expensive suits. The same lead doctor who once ignored her stood silently in the corner. A woman in a navy blazer opened the meeting. "Layla Brooks, thank you for attending. We'd like to go over your actions during the Drexler emergency." Layla remained calm. "I acted because no one else did. I saw symptoms no one was treating. On what authority did you act?" "None. Just instinct. And study. And experience." The room shifted uncomfortably. A gray-haired man spoke next. "Do you realize how dangerous it is to interfere in medical care without qualifications?" "Yes," Layla said. "But I also know what happens when you do nothing." That line froze. The room, for a moment, no one spoke. Then the doctor stepped forward. "She was right," he said quietly. "We missed it." "She didn't." Murmurs broke out. The woman in the blazer glanced at the others. "Thank you. We'll inform you of our decision." As Layla left the room, the same doctor caught up to her in the hallway. "You reminded me why I started this job," he said. "Don't stop." Back home, Layla tried to return to normal. But normal was gone. A news anchor on national television told her story. Hashtags climbed again. Students at other schools started projects about plant toxins. Teachers used her case. In class discussions, she became something bigger than herself, a symbol of truth in a place built on silence. One night, Layla sat on the rooftop alone. The stars above were quiet. "So was the city." She whispered to the wind. "Why me?" Behind her, her mother answered, "Because you listened when no one else did." That week, Layla received a package. No return address. Inside was a small silver pin shaped like a trumpet. Flower, the same plant that almost killed Mr. Drexler. No note. Just the pin. She didn't know what it meant. A threat? A message? A thank you? But she held on to it. At school, a science teacher invited her to co-present at a national science fair. Colleges started sending her brochures. One university even offered early admission. Still, Layla hesitated. It wasn't about fame anymore. It was about what came next and who she was becoming. She wasn't just a girl with answers. Now, she was a girl with eyes on her. And not all of them wanted her to win. They once ignored her because she was invisible. Now they watched her like she was a threat. Layla Brooks hadn't changed, but the world around her had. Some wanted to protect her. Others wanted to erase her before she became too powerful. Week passed. Layla stayed home more often. Not because she was hiding, but because every time she stepped outside, someone stared. Some smiled, some whispered, and a few just watched too long. She started writing in her notebook again, not about plants or science, but about thoughts, questions. What makes people trust strangers in suits, but doubt the girl with the mop? Why do people only listen after it's almost too late? What if next time I don't speak up in time? Her pen scratched across the page, line after line. She didn't write for anyone else, just to breathe. Meanwhile, online interest grew. A video surfaced, footage from the hospital hallway. In it, Layla stood frozen outside Mr. Drexler's room. The moment her mop hit the floor, she sprinted toward him. The audio was faint, but her voice was clear. "He's been poisoned. You need atropine." The clip exploded on TikTok. Millions watched, shared, reacted. Some called her brave. Others called it fake. The hospital still hadn't spoken her name. Reporters reached out again. One from a major news magazine offered to feature her on the cover. Layla refused. Her mom tried to smile through the noise, but she was exhausted too. "I thought this would pass," Miriam said one night over dinner. "I thought they'd move on." Layla stirred her soup. "I think I've become a mirror. People see what they want in me." Her mother sighed. "I just want them to see you as my daughter. That's enough." But the world had its own plans. That Friday, Layla was called into the school principal's office. He looked nervous, tapping his pen. "There's been some concerns raised." "Concerns?" she asked. "Certain parents are saying you're a disruption, that your situation is bringing too much attention to the school. Some even think it's unsafe." "Unsafe?" "They say you had access to a toxin, that you acted without permission, that maybe it wasn't as innocent as it seems." Layla's voice stayed calm. "So now I'm the danger." The principal looked uncomfortable. "I don't believe that. But pressure is real. The school board wants to avoid controversy." She nodded slowly. "What happens now?" "We're asking you to take a short leave, just until things cool down." Layla stood, picking up her bag. Things only cool down when people stop caring. She left without another word. Outside, the sky looked too bright, too clear. She texted her mother. "They asked me to leave school." Her mother replied, "Come home, we'll figure it out." That evening, Layla went for a walk. The city felt different now, like it was watching her too. Every ad, every passerby, every news screen felt like it whispered her name. She stopped near a mural wall where local artists painted each month. This time, someone had drawn her dot. It wasn't a fancy portrait, just a sketch. Her face turned to the side, her mouth open mid-sentence, and underneath in red letters, "Listen to her." Layla stepped closer, heart racing. A boy nearby noticed her staring. "You saw that girl too, huh? She's all over the news." Layla gave a small nod. "She saved some rich guy, right?" "Something like that," she replied. He shrugged and walked away. She stared at the mural a moment longer, then took a photo. The next morning, Layla woke up to banging on their front door. Her mother opened it, half asleep. Two men stood outside. "In suits, Miss Brooks," one said. "We're from the State Medical Review Board." Layla appeared behind her mother, confused. "Why are you here?" "We'd like to ask about your involvement in the Drexler case. We've been reviewing complaints from both hospital personnel and members of the public." Miriam stepped in front. "My daughter saved a life. She didn't commit a crime." The man raised a hand calmly. "No accusations. We just want a statement." They sat in the living room, pulling out tablets. "Tell us exactly how you identified the poison." Layla repeated her story, detail by detail. Her voice didn't shake. "And the flower?" one asked. "You recognized it from family knowledge?" "Yes, and personal study." "Would you say you acted with certainty or instinct?" "I acted because no one else did." The second man paused. "You're very calm for a teenager." Layla gave a small smile. "I'm used to being doubted." They left with a polite nod, but her mother was furious. "They're still trying to twist it, still trying to find a way to blame you." Layla looked at her notebook on the table. "They don't scare me, not anymore." She picked up her pen and turned to a fresh page. "Let them ask their questions," she wrote. "I've already answered with actions." Asterisk, the world tried to paint her as a threat, then a miracle, then a mystery. But Layla Brooks was just a girl with a voice. And when that voice finally reached the right ears, it did more than speak. It echoed. The storm had slowed, but it hadn't passed. Layla's face had become a symbol, a hashtag, and now, unexpectedly, a case study. A popular university professor posted a video titled, "The Power of Quiet Truth," a breakdown of the Layla Brooks incident. It gained 500,000 views in 2 days. In the video, The professor pointed out everything. The hospital's slow response, the public's rush to judge. The danger of silencing people based on where they come from. Layla watched it with her mother in silence. When it ended, Miriam whispered, "He said what I wanted to scream." The clip was shared across social media. It wasn't just students anymore. Now lawyers, teachers, and doctors were joining the discussion. Some said Layla proved how outdated the system was. Others claimed she was being used as a token of social guilt. Layla didn't comment, but her story kept growing. A week later, an envelope arrived by courier. Inside was a handwritten letter and a plane ticket. The letter read, "We are hosting a panel on youth science and ethics. We'd be honored to have you speak. You don't need to prepare a speech. Just be yourself. The world needs to hear your voice again." It was signed by the dean of a major medical university. Miriam wasn't sure. "You don't owe anyone a performance," she said. Layla nodded. "I know, but I think I need to go. Not for them, for me." They traveled together. The conference hall was larger than anything Layla had seen. Banners of Nobel Prize winners lined the walls. Cameras stood on long robotic arms. A full audience filled the seats. Layla sat backstage, holding her notes. She wasn't scared. She was steady. When her name was called, a quiet applause greeted her. She stepped onto the stage, eyes scanning the rows of faces, some smiling, others curious, a few already judging. She took a breath. "I'm not a doctor," she began. "I'm not a scientist or a genius or anything special." People leaned forward. "I'm the daughter of a hospital cleaner. I read. I observe. I ask questions when something feels wrong." She paused, and when I saw a man dying from something no one was treating, I did what I thought anyone would do. I tried to help. The crowd stayed still. I didn't act to prove anything. I acted because silence wasn't an option anymore. And if I had waited one more minute, he might have died. Layla folded her paper slowly. "So, to anyone who thinks I was lucky, maybe I was. But luck didn't get me through that door. Courage did." A beat passed. Then the applause rose. This time louder, real. Backstage, the dean smiled. "You didn't just speak," he said. "You taught." On the flight home, Layla leaned against the window. Her mother held her hand. "You were brilliant," Miriam whispered. "No," Layla said softly. "I was honest." Back in her neighborhood, something had changed. Local shops taped her photo in their windows. A small park bench had her name carved into the side. Not officially, just by someone who wanted her remembered. Online, people were still debating. Some still doubted, but others had begun sharing their own Layla moments, stories of speaking up, being overlooked, and finally being heard. One young girl posted a selfie with a notebook and the caption, "I'm studying like Layla. One day I'll be her." Layla saw it, smiled, and replied, "One day you'll be even better." Then came a call she didn't expect. It was from a producer at a national talk show. "We'd like to invite you for a live interview," she said. "Prime time. We think your story matters." Layla paused. "Why now?" The producer was quiet for a moment. "Because you've already told the story. We just want more people to hear it." Layla didn't say yes right away. She thought about it for a full day. Then, quietly, she agreed. But before the cameras, before the lights, before the studio, she did one more thing. She went back to the hospital, not to confront, not to ask for credit, just to walk the halls one more time. She stood near the janitor's closet, ran her hand over the old mop handle, breathed in the scent of antiseptic and memory, and she whispered to herself, "This is where I was nobody. And still, I changed something." Some stories don't end. They keep living in whispers, headlines, and hearts. Layla's journey didn't close with applause or headlines. It unfolded into something deeper, something permanent. The talk show aired 2 days later. Layla walked onto the stage wearing a simple dress, her braids tied back, her notebook tucked into her hand. The host smiled wide, but Layla's own smile was smaller. Not shy, just calm. They asked her the same questions everyone had asked. What made you speak up? Did you feel scared? Do you think things would have been different if you looked different? She answered them all with honesty and grace. I think people trust titles more than they trust truth, she said. But titles don't always act fast. And truth doesn't always wear a badge. The audience nodded. Some teared up dot. As the segment ended, the host turned to her. What do you want to be when you grow up? Layla looked at the camera. I don't want to be anything else, she said. I already am who I need to be. Applause filled the studio. Back home, her neighborhood gathered outside her building to watch the episode on a projector. Kids clapped when they saw her face. One child held a sign that read, Our voice, our Layla. A few days later, her story was added to an ethics textbook, then to a leadership curriculum. Then, someone painted a mural of her face across an old school wall, this time in full color, with her mouth closed and her eyes wide open. A caption beneath read, She didn't shout, but the world heard her anyway. Layla kept going. She studied harder, volunteered, helped others, but she stayed humble, because deep down, she knew she hadn't done it alone. Every silent person who ever noticed something wrong and stayed quiet out of fear, they were with her. And now they weren't invisible anymore. One afternoon, she passed 2 nurses in the street. They didn't notice her. One whispered to the other, Be careful. You never know who's watching. Layla smiled. Exactly. That was the point. Asterisk, she wasn't loud. She was just right. And sometimes, that's louder than anything else.